All right, we are recording, not live, but this is SANDCAST Beach Volleyball with the new shaved-headed Bourne and
Hey.
Travis Mewhirter. Another quarantine podcast here on the Zoom, and we got my good friend and Pepperdine coach Marcio Sicoli. How we doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. Family's good. We're healthy. We're staying home, and thanks for having me. This podcast has been like a great asset for the community, and being here is just a pleasure. And hopefully, I can give a little contribution for both of you, for the community, and learn as well. I think that's a two-way road here.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that you can contribute to the community. You've been doing it. It's always surprising to me, like how young you are and how much experience you have coaching. Just like, because you've been in like coaching the Olympics since '04. And I was like, well, you've got to be at least like, with that experience, like at least 60s. And then I'm like, this guy was like 38 when I met him. It's crazy. You started in the game early.
Yeah, I mean, again, if we look back, and then I look back a lot, it's culturally, right? So if you look in Brazil, the development is earlier. So we see like players developing early. So players don't go to college. So you see like young players, right? So, around the world, 18, 19, and they're playing at the right level. And for me, it was the opposite way. I was really involved with playing, and then in the early age was already like, hey, do you want to play or you want to coach? And then, I mean, I'm 5'11", so playing was an option. So that is culturally. And, I was, fortunate enough to get to know people, follow my parents' instruction, going to school. Because I finished my physical education bachelor degree, I could be one of the actually I was the first, the youngest coach to do the level 2 beach volleyball program in Brazil.
Really?
You only could do the level 2 if you finish like your graduation program, your undergrad. So and then that's it. And I love what I do. I don't want to go anywhere. I love what I do, and hopefully I can do 20 more years, and then I'm done, and I'm gonna retire beachfront.
Yeah, you've already got the beachfront property, obviously, by your background, right?
Yeah,
there.
exactly. I just got to turn around and keep looking to that.
Exactly.
I got mine too. Right there.
There you go.
That's awesome that you found that passion super early. I feel like that would make you one of the rare ones who knew what you wanted to do early on. What was it about coaching that you fell in love with so early? Or maybe it was just a sport, because you mentioned 5'11", you're like, maybe playing isn't my future. What made you go like right into coaching?
That's a great question. In the beginning, I don't want to be a coach. I want to be a pilot. I want to fly planes and then stuff like that. Coaching was natural. As much as I remember, I've been like the captain of my volleyball teams, and there was like this moment of instruction, and then the collaboration with the coaches too. So I was really involved with the coaches, or like the messenger, right? So like the middleman with the team, and coming here and there. And that was like natural. That was like, oh my God, I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to be that coach. I knew it since the beginning that I was a personal person.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be talking to computers. I wouldn't be talking to machines. I didn't like that. I knew that. And that was one of my, when I went to my vocational task, they call in Brazil, and I said, I want to be a pilot, and I want to fly planes and this and that. And the person acts like, well, you got to call the tower control and then see this and the computers. And I said, no, like if I know what to do, I will do it. So it's like, that's not how it works. You're going to have to anyways, and it just was natural, that experience. And then in college, right on my sophomore year, I was playing on a team, and I got like an internship and with PE in a high school, and then that was it. But again, I think that is about that passion to be with people, and then thrive throughout the other people's success, because that is what the coaching is.
Yeah.
It's you see, process, you see something really cool happening that is not with you, but is with someone else. And then when that happens, great. And then you move on for the next one. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of the different levels of coaching and how in Brazil, the developmental process starts earlier, where at 18, 19, like you've seen it you can see it with Duda, she's the best player, arguably the best player in the world. And she's either still a teenager or only 20.
Yeah.
How's it differ, the developmental process on the beach between Brazil and the US, which I think are probably two of the top beach countries in the world, with now Canada coming up too, but.
Yeah. I mean, if I can summarize, right, on that, and a lot, I mean, again, who am I to give all of them? But here's on top of my head on this conversation.
Yeah.
Is first of all, is the culturally, right? When you have a kid that has a potential, that is no rules.
Yeah.
So and that's the biggest thing in Brazil. You don't have rules towards to form a citizen and having education and all that stuff. We do have that program, but if there is someone that is a talent that you can develop to make a way of living, that becomes the second the second factor. And that's what it is in Brazil. So those, example, do the great potential. Why wait? Let's develop that potential as much as we can, and at least have that person. The other thing that I used to say is just the society and the economy, right? So you see here that is like this big group of kids and that play sports. They play sports or organize the sports because they already have food, they have their house, they're settled. So then you have that. In Brazil, you don't have. So if you have something that is really special, they want to get it done sooner than later, even though that is one or two. So again, summarizing is a culture. That is a cultural process on that is the education and how to form citizens first, then a sports person. And then again, I'm not here arguing that's right or wrong, but it's definitely something related with the culture and the economics of the countries.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you were one of the youngest coaches to get to that level too. How many levels are there? Like, I don't really know much about the coaching world. Like, what's the process to kind of climb the ladder of coaching levels?
Yeah. Again, I'm 40 now. When all that when I was in Brazil, we have 2 levels only for beach.
Okay.
We have level 1 and level 2. You only could do level 2 if you would do level 1, or if you would have your bachelor in physical education. So those are like the top levels that was offered by the national governing body, the NGB, that we have the USAV volleyball. In Brazil, we have CBV.
Okay.
I do know for a fact that FIVB is trying to implement something like that. It's just like in a bigger, scale. I don't know how they're managing that. For the indoor, they have a level 3 as well. But for the beach, for now, I think we're like on the 1 and the 2, this back in Brazil.
Okay.
Internationally, we're trying to get organized. I think there was 3 years ago, I was a member of the board for the IBVCA, that is an International Beach Volleyball Coach Association, that we're trying to formalize some protocols for coaches internationally. But for now, I think each country has their own coaching program. Here in the United States, we have the Beach Cap. The Beach Cap, if I'm not wrong, now we have like 2 levels. Okay. As well. So that's kind of like what the picture on the coaching for beach.
Okay.
Did you so you did all your schooling in Brazil first? I'm always interested to hear Brazilian stories of how they came to the US, because so many of you have come over, and we're actually lucky to have so many good Brazilian coaches right now. Obviously, I'm with Loyola right now, and he has a crazy story. But you did all your schooling in Brazil and then came over, or how was that? What was that transition like for you?
That's a great question. I think the transition was pretty simple for me. after I'm done with my level 2, one of my mentors and a great friend, Abel and Leticia, they were the instructors. And right after the course, they invited me to work on their team. And that's what led me to be part of like the Athens Games and then to be part of like that process. And I was working with them back in Brazil, and suddenly, a great player that I put her, top 5 or 2, 3, I don't know. She's a great friend to Tati. Tati knocked on my door and said, "Hey, I got invited to go to AVP. I need a coach. Do you want to go with us?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about?" Well, we just got to go for the whole summer in the United States. I was like, "Well, first of all, like, why are you choosing me?" She was like, "Well, we had a coach, but he doesn't want to go anymore. You know English. Well, let's use you." All right, let's do this. We came for 2 seasons. We were top 5 in both. The 3rd season, Tachi came in. I was a coach, and then we played with Carrie Dodd. At that time, Carrie Bush, Carrie Dodd. And at that point, beach volleyball is that big. It's pretty small. And then we were training with Holly. We were training with all the American teams, and Holly made an offer for me and said, "Hey, do you want to come and be in the United States for the whole year?" And I said, "How? Like, where?" I have a full-time in Brazil. I was a PE teacher for the state. So basically I was a PE teacher on the state that was a job for life. Like it's like a state job. And I said, I was married with my first wife at that time. And I mean, how? Like, and then she goes like, "Look, you come, I give you a full-time job at the beach." And then I said, "But it's just in the summer. What I do, the other months." And she goes like, "And then I will introduce you for the volleyball indoor, and then you can make some money out of that." So I said, okay, at that time I was like, I talked to my dad, and my dad looked at me and I said, "The worst case scenario, you're coming back, and then I will be here for you, son." And I was like, "Well, let's do it." So, I was coaching the Dutch team actually at that time. And then we did a trip to Mexico and Acapulco tournament there. I didn't went through the desert and all that stuff. That's not that interesting. We just took a flight and I came here, and then the rest was, and that's everything started. And Holly introduced me to Geeter and then Tim Jensen that were working at Pepperdine at that time. So Pepperdine opened a position for the indoor team. I did an interview, and here it comes. So 14 years later, I'm here, remarried. Like I have 2 kids, 1 on the way. My wife is unbelievable. I love this country. I got my citizenship a couple months ago, and
congrats.
Oh yeah, and really proud of it. And I already registered to vote as well.
There you go. I love it.
On that the politics here, but I'm registered. So this has been that journey, Troy.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting to hear those stories, because you have to make such a giant leap, like a lifestyle change, to get out here. And like I obviously talk to Loyola all the time, and he's like considers himself a full-on Cali guy nowadays. He's like, "I'm barely Brazilian," because he came out here and just fully like embraced the culture and was so grateful to kind of, I guess in a lot of ways, kind of upgrade his lifestyle from where he came from. And it's just cool to hear those stories.
Absolutely. I think I'm all in. I'm all in every time. My parents and I have friends there, but this country received me. This country gave me the opportunity, and I want to give it back. And my giving back is that coaching in the United States, is paying taxes, is moving my car side to side to street cleaning and helping others. That's what it is, and that's what you want to raise your family to, with your values. And you're totally right, Tri. I'm really grateful and thankful for the opportunity, and I'm staying. Nobody kicked me out. So
no, I think it's great, because a lot of people that are born here you kind of take it for granted, you know. And a lot of people that beach volleyball has given them a lot in their lives don't really realize how much they've gotten. Whereas like people like you guys who have come over have a better sense of that and are more willing to be all in, I think.
Yeah, and you know what I tell the college kids on that, and you know, and even you know the players, the professional level, beach volleyball, that is a glamour for that, you know, and that was one of my discussions with national governing bodies. That was like, well, yeah, let's do this and let's offer to travel to Thailand. Let's to travel to. This is just glamour. You know, you're taking people for the traveling. Like if you want to create a development program, you have to get the right people to not wanting to travel, but wanting to be part of something bigger than themselves. And but beach volleyball has that glamour, the traveling, the flexibility, right? So I can have my own coach, I can have my own times, I can do this, and all this glamour.
Yeah.
Sometimes blind people, and they are there maybe for the wrong reasons, or the truth is they get short, you know, on the international level, because there is people hungrier, and people that maybe wants a little bit more in that. So that's my personal opinion. Again, I'm not here saying the right or wrong and this person or that person, but that's kind of like how I put my values, and I have some anchor points even for my family and my kids.
Yeah.
And you, just like the names that you mentioned throughout your coaching process, and like there's some of the sport's all-time greats. And you started when you were working with Shelda and Adriana in Brazil. You must have been what, like 20 when you got that promotion to working with them before Athens?
Well, that is well, I went to school. That's another thing. Again, I follow my parents. You know, I went to college with 17.
Okay.
So I was done with like a 27, 8, 9, 10, 11, 21. The next year, 22. So that's when I started working on a high level
Okay.
with Adriana. And again, the biggest part, I think, of my coaching experience, it is the time, of course, that I've been on the four lines, right? And then coaching and then talking and hitting a ball or serving a ball or looking. But it's how I had a relationship with my mentors, with Leticia, with Abel. Because you coach a player for what, 2 hours a day, 2.5, I don't know, maybe like a new video session. So that is 4 hours a day. So that is 20 more. So what do you do on the 20 more? And that's sometimes when I think when players and coaches can start getting an advantage from others, is like, well, that is 4 hours, but that is other 20 hours. What do you do on the 20 hours? Well, if that is sleeping, eating, but I had that relationship with them. So we had meetings. We didn't have meetings. We were having drinks. We're having food, and that type of experience, it's priceless. You know, every webinar, every place that you go, and you know, you learn more between the lines. You know, I finished my, you know, I was here working at Pepperdine, and I finished my master's in educational psychology at Pepperdine. So I'm going for my doctor. I just need to stop having kids, but I will. It's crazy. But I learned more between the lines. I learned more with the teachers, like after, before, on the breaks, on a simple email to ask about this, and creating correlations. Because people get so like narrow focused that they see like, you're not the first one or the last one. You're not like, you know, creating the wheel. So that is other sports. What's the relation? Have you stopped and watched another kids playing other sports? Like, you know, my son started playing hockey. It's a different world. And then it's a different world that you can start creating correlations, how they develop the kids, how they are, why the hockey players are tougher is because of the weather, because they train. What is that dynamic And again, in the end, you're all humans. This is about relationships. This is about relationships, and it's how you develop those relationships that you're going to be able to squeeze the best of your athlete, and vice versa, because that is a two-way road that the athlete can squeeze the best of her coach as well.
Yeah, I love that, and like how, because especially with college game that I'm sure you're finding out or have found out, and you're what is it 7-8 years on the beach with Pepperdine, and then you were there indoor before then too, but that you can't recruit an athlete and force them into your system, but rather like bring an athlete in and just kind of work with them and what they have. And I feel like it's probably different from working with a professional where you only have two. Right?
Yeah.
Like how do you, as a coach, like how different is it working with like an Olympic caliber team of two, and then working with a team of like 18 where your skill sets range from like a court one AVP main draw type player, to someone who might be court 3 years from now?
Well, first, it's an unbelievable question, Travis. You probably have been doing that for long. I think that the biggest thing that I try to work with the players and the differences is helping them changing the lenses that they see things, right? Of course, I teach them to pass, but the difference is on your level, Try, and then in the professional level, and in you, Travis, is your gains are going to be like 2%, 3%. Like it's the gains are going to be so small right there that most of the time, you're not going to be able to see it. And you shouldn't, because there is a lot of things going on. And then you get frustrated. You don't know what's going on. And then that improvement became frustration, and then you start losing. So the biggest difference between the professional level and the college is exactly that big improvement, this big gap. On the college, it gets easier, actually, because the kids can go like 0 to 10 faster because you are with them every day. So that is a controlled environment. That is like, maybe they were not exposed to simple things, that will flourish. And then also like you have the ability to do individualized training as well. So this thing that like, we'll have 18, they're all doing the same thing. Like you can't do it. Coach Karai would never pass the ball. Like his platform is Coach Karai's platform. So like, would you tell him to change? Tell him? Probably not. Of course not. So I think the biggest difference is adjust that lenses, right? For the professional level to understand that the 1% is really big. And then for the college, understand that your leap 0 to 10 is going to be so fast and so big that you're going to go, whoa, what's going on here? All right, now stay there and keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. So one of the things that I tell my players, and I can quote Carrie on that, and many others, but Carrie especially because she's still playing, is the ability to do it every single day, again and again, over and over and over. That ability, and then Carrie's a great example of that. That separates, the top players, that ability to go over and over every single day.
Do you notice at the pro or college level that players tend to be more or less like open to learning new stuff, or it's harder to get through to one or the other? I could see it going either way. That's why.
No, I didn't. No,
I think like at the pro level, a lot of people are like, I'm already here for a reason. Like my skills have gotten me here, and that kind of can make them be a little closed off. And then at the college level, I feel like when they do make such big gains, they expect to keep making those big gains rather than like what you said, like take a big step and then stay there. They're like, I want to take a big step and then take another big step. But like really the art of it is to see how long you can stay there and then eventually take that next step, right?
Absolutely. Or maybe that is not another step.
Yeah.
maybe that is
Right,
not,
yeah.
but it is how, again, you can do that over and over, because the truth is someone is going to stop doing it. And then that's when you go.
Right.
That's when you go. Because if not, that's what the sport is. In the past, I didn't know what Russia is doing. I didn't know now I can just Google it. Everybody's doing it. Everybody knows everything. That is not really that secret sauce, right? Well, I have like a secret weapon. It's the ball and two. It is the quick set. We know. We know.
Right.
We know how Poland does. We know how the small guys play. We know, we know. So it is how you're able to, I call that, people use that word. I use like integrity. Different. Integrity is not just about morals and values. It's not. But the integrity is a foundation, right? So how can you keep your foundation every single day? Be on time every day. Be open every day. And being open for me is bringing information. If you're going to use it or not, you don't know. But the openness, it's not trying things, but like, hey, come over, bring it to me. Let my experience, let my situational figure out if I'm going to use it or not. But not just like, stiff on, like, whoa, that is crazy there. Like, oh, come over. Let's discuss this, because, again, situations and occasionals, you might use, of course, always never crossing a line of values. So I think that is the difference. And to be honest, I haven't seen the difference from the professional level and the college level, at least how, again, I tried to create and maintain my relationships with my peers and with all that. But I can see that happening too. I definitely, that's pretty common out there.
It's more based on like the individuals, I guess.
Correct. And I think is the individuals, and again, it is how you process information, how you let the information come to you. Mm-hmm. If you don't, just come to information. My dad would say that. There is no capacity for learning. That is not like a storage unit. You can put it, storage unit is done.
Right. Yeah.
Close it. No, it's like a infinite like space out there. And then sometimes you open and you use it, whatever you need. I think that's kind of important.
I think that's a good way to look at it.
Create that culture, right? If you create that culture, if your players are in, if they understand, then I think you're going to be just fine.
I like that mindset or that thought process of not having a maxed out like data iCloud in your head, because a lot of times when you realize that something works so well for you, you just want to hang on to it. But then a lot of times, like when people bring new stuff in, you're like, no, this thing got me here and it's been so good for me. I don't want to let go of it. Like, I mean, I struggle with that all the time, because when I came back after being out for a year and a half ish, I remember just trying to remember all the stuff that worked for me, and it was really hard. And then I was like, do I want to do everything the way I used to do it because it worked, or do I just want to come in with a complete clean slate and have it just kind of melt in as like, something completely new, and just trust that that's going to be even better. And I tried to trust that everything was going to be better if I just stayed really open-minded about it. And it has been. I'm learning a lot of new stuff, but I still battle with it. Like, I'm like, but my blocking is not what it was, and I used to hit this shot better, and I used to do this and that. And I'm like, should I switch back? Should I tell coach I don't want to do it that way? But I think I realized that's just how it's always going to be. You're always going to feel like you lose something or getting better at another thing, or you're constantly going to be bouncing around, so you just got to keep moving forward. And I think I probably don't give myself enough credit for how much I actually have learned and gotten better. You don't really realize the strides you're making over the years. You always think like, I had that one good game back in 2015. Damn, I was so good back then. But then you don't remember all the bad ones, Yeah. And then I think about like my last match, we played Mexico and I played bad. or whatever. I couldn't side out. We lost. And I keep thinking about that. I'm like, damn it. I freaking used to side out like a champ. I'm like, why am I thinking of that one match? I can only think of my last match. And then when I think back on the past, I think of my best matches.
Yeah.
So it's funny how the brain works.
Well, it's standard athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah, standard high performance athlete, and how you filter those spots, and how can you give those spots to someone else too, to your coach and to your staff. Like, hey, I don't want to think about this. Can you just think for me?
Yeah.
Up there. But you said, like, you're learning. Learning doesn't mean that you're going to use. You're learning. You're
right,
yeah. Keep learning. Keep learning. Keep learning. Keep learning. Keep learning. It doesn't mean that you're going to be, A, B, C. Just learn. And then at a certain point, you're going to use something. So
it'll apply itself. That's kind of what I learned.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to decide like what kind of player you're going to be or how you're going to be. Just take it all in and then see what comes out, kind of.
Yeah, you're going to always have your identity, and that's who you are. And that's you. Up there, it's how you have your culture of training and how your mindset. That's gonna be you. And again, that's the difference of Brazil. Like that specificity. Like, how are you gonna be like this or that? Like, I don't know what I'm gonna be. I just know that I play on the right side or on the left side, and I'm gonna go from it. Hold on, you guys. Let me just.
You're
good. He's super busy these days. He's got
back.
Almost a new. I was just giving Try a rundown of what's happening in the house. You got Max, who's just charging around. His son just started walking, and he's like full on running around now. And then almost a newborn coming in.
Absolutely, coming up 3 more weeks.
My girl is like basically took her first crawling steps yesterday. It was pretty wild.
There you go. That's awesome. We're great here. Again, I couldn't do it without my wife. She is a rock. I'm just for the ride. She's doing it.
I'm sure, Marcio, you mentioned that a lot about learning from the athlete's perspective. I'm sure you've learned a lot about yourself as a coach and as a person this past. I mean, obviously since 2000 when you started working, coaching at the high level, but really this past year and a half, like your life's been on like hyper speed with, taking over the head coaching role at Pepperdine after working with Nina Matthews for a while. And then you were coaching with Brooke and Carrie for a little bit. Now you're in year 2 of Pepperdine and it gets canceled. Like, you've had to deal with a lot of adversity here.
I can't keep track of you.
What'd you say, Trey?
I can't keep track of you. You're always doing so much.
I tells everyone, like, the past 2 years has been, we're going to got to break at a certain point. We got the fires, we got the shooting, we got this, I used to say I'm dealing with stress, right? So the stress, and then stress can only get you to the right or left. To the right is debilitate your performance, or to the left, you're going to improve your performance. You're going to enhance what you do. That's it. Like, if you're in the middle, you're already wrong. If you go to the right, you're debilitating your high performance. You just go left and then go with it. So I'm, again, thankful and grateful for everything that I'm going through. Grateful, thankful for my work, but thankful and grateful for the support system that I have. We want to have a family, so we're moving along with our plans, and then we go from that. I couldn't be happy where I am, and where we are with all that stuff. Karen Brooke was awesome. Like, we went from 5 to number 2. I couldn't be happier in everything.
Yeah. And I know I don't know if Zoom is going to give us a time limit or not, but we have about 6 minutes left on the 40 that we are allotted.
I got a message saying that we have more time.
Oh, really? Sweet.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, anyway, I did want to ask just about all your Olympic experience. I mean, your first one was in 2004 with Brazil. You guys won a silver medal. You were I don't know if did you coach in Beijing?
No Beijing for me. I was
Okay.
here. That was you guys probably were. I don't know how old are you guys, but there was Holly.
Just graduated high school.
So we were trying to qualify Logan Tom and Holly McPeak. Logan coming from the indoor. She was a standout at Stanford, was playing pro, decided to try the beach, and then we didn't qualify it, and then she got back to the indoor as being there. Okay. So no Beijing for me.
Okay. So you went silver in Athens, which is unreal, and then skipped out on Beijing. Still worked with a heck of a team, though.
Absolutely.
And then you win gold in London with Misty and Carrie. And then were you coaching Carrie in 16? Carrie in April?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you got a medal of every color.
Fortunately or unfortunately? No, just kidding. Really, yeah, really thankful and grateful for all that. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I have never been to the Olympics. I grew up watching the Olympics. So Summer Olympics are like everything stopped in the Mewhirter household to watch the Summer Olympics. Just what kind of an experience is that just compared to, say, like a normal beach volleyball tournament or like a world championships? I think is probably the closest comparison just in terms of, magnitude of it and length of it. But how is it just coaching a team at the Olympic Games, which is, for better or for worse, what our sport is centered around every 4 years?
It's, I could say and then play around. It's a lot. That's a blah, blah, blah. I think that it is teaching you to try to prioritize things and then trying to understand that something is important, something is not important. And that is the games right there. So because every 4 years, right, when it started or whatever it is, everything is important. Everything, from the transportation, from the food, from everything is important. It's not. So I think what I've been learning and still learning that process is what is important. What is important that I have to look? What am I looking that is important? And that is a consistent, like constantly process, on a daily basis. It's like looking for what matters. So this is not important. Well, schedule is important. This is important. This one at a time. So what is more important? I think that has been teaching me and taught me a lot. Every time is different, for the players that you have, and also like the location and the situation, like where the games are, where is in London, where is in Brazil, was in Tokyo. So I think it is this mindset of like, okay, what is important? That's not everything. Something will be more important than the other things. So I think that's still teaching me a lot.
Yeah.
How do you go about prioritizing like something at the Olympic Games where you're trying to prioritize? I mean, just being there alone is an important thing in your life. Obviously, going to the opening ceremonies, seeing other athletes, going for the entire experience is important. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, you're saying bye-bye for them. Okay.
Thank you. Like, how do you plan out before with your teams? Like, okay, what do you think is important and what do you think is not? Like, I could see Carrie and Misty, for example, being like, I don't care about any of that at all. I only care about the medal. Whereas other teams might be like, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to prioritize some of this other stuff because I'm here for the experience and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Is that like a meeting that you guys kind of have and agree upon and then go and then kind of attack it once you get there?
Yeah, well, I'm going to kind of divide my answer in two. The number one is if you're training an Olympic team, you learn through the process, right? So you learn throughout the qualification process. That's what is important right there? What is it? Mm-hmm. And also, like, the coach will establish what is the non-negotiable, what is negotiable and what is not. And one of the things that is not negotiable for me is making sure that the Olympics, the medals, everything is way more important than yourself. You're representing a country. Mm-hmm. like you're putting a point on the board or the medals for the country. So that is totally different. So I think that is a partnership, absolutely, and then establishing what is negotiable or not. If I'm only thinking about the medal, if I'm only thinking about my own success, what, you're gonna not go on the open ceremonies because your leg's gonna be tired? Like, really?
Right. Yeah.
What is that? Like, well, I remember in London, so we were going into the open ceremonies, and then we were like waiting, and then on that long line, and then, going. We were not even in the stadium. And then I see Natalie Cook getting off the stadium, and then we play them tomorrow. So when I saw her coming, just when I was like, oh my God, she's going to be so relaxed. Like, we're not even in the stadium. And then finally you see, like, well, Australia, letter A, no kidding. It's on the end.
Yeah.
So, like, she was done. But like, you find ways. So we got in the stadium that is half of a lap, and then we went out. We didn't stay for the open ceremony for the whole thing.
Yeah.
So there is things that you can plan. So again, answering your question, I think is a process. 4 years, you're gonna know, and then from those 4 years, what is negotiable and what is not negotiable. I think that is right there. And then for me, in my experience, making sure that it's something bigger than you is the kicker. That is no negotiable on that.
Huh. I'm sure you got to be extremely flexible as well. Like when there's that big of a production going on, like you could get stuck in traffic or a line or something where you're not planning it.
What I call that is it's life.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I said. Like, you have the stress, and the stress is the line, and the stress is this. It's going to debilitate our performance or going to enhance our performance. That's a mindset out there.
Yeah.
Like, if there is a line for treatment, if the transportation got late, if whatever it is, that is a mindset right there that shouldn't debilitate your performance. It's a stress. It should enhance your performance. Right. So as soon as you kind of get on that matter, it is good. And I would take, and I took for the games, like a whiteboard. I have like a little whiteboard, and then I plan it, what we're going to do. And that was the non-negotiables, period. And then everything else around it, it was negotiable, and then it's fine. You want to enjoy the games. You want to have the experience. You want to change the pins. You want to have that, because that stress has to enhance your performance. Because if it debilitates your performance, it doesn't matter. You're going to lose on a CBVA, AVP, or an Olympics the same way, because the stress is the same, but stress is an outside factor, right, that is influencing you. So again, hopefully I answer your question a little bit.
For sure.
With that. So
I know you got looks like a Max who wants to play with you over there, so we won't keep you too much longer. One thing that I was curious about is that, I mean, you've worked with the highest level players in the game. I mean, you've worked with Carrie and Misty, April. I think you worked with Jake and Taylor for a little bit. You worked with Holly and like all the tops in Brazil. Like, what are the common threads that you noticed between those athletes, either the way they approach the game, a mental trick, not a trick, but like either how they approach it mentally, physically, the way they train? What are the commonalities that you see that separate them from, the guys and gals who are finishing 7th and 9th versus winning gold medals in London?
Great question, by the way. And then again, hopefully this podcast doesn't use by a recipe, right? Because it is different, each people and each players and how you manage your program and your teams. Number one is, again, the ability to do day in and day out. That was extremely, you can see the people that is not a chore, go to practice. That is not a chore. They just go, because that's what they do. We brush our choppers every day, right? That's what you do. And when you start having that mindset and that type of approach, you are on. You're on the whole time. So that ability for me, it was really impressive, really impressive. And I, on the crunch time, that is a feel of, I think I deserve this. And then that is a smile on the face like yours right now. And then you just go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That is no question. That is not what type of player I am or what am I going to do now? Like, come on, I deserve this. Like in a simple and genuine way. So that's number one. Number two is the ability of the player has to trust. Oh, I'm going to say me, but I don't want to say me, but trust the staff or who they're working with to take out of their plate. And then trust. It's almost like that game, right? So you blindfold the person. Okay, now you got to find this. And they go right, left. Is the ability of them go like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to give to Travis. I'm going to give it to Try. And then I know on the bottom of my heart that he's going to make the best decision for us, for this country, for what we're doing here. And if it's not there, it is hard. Because, you know, the athletes start like, you know, I call it like the octopus, right? So like all hands, like you know, taking everything. Dude, you got to focus on that mindset and play. And so those are the two things that I saw. I mean, I got goosebumps on this. I saw it. I was part of it. You know, grateful and humble for that. And that is awesome. Awesome. It is absolutely awesome on the team.
Yeah. Well, I know it has been awesome having you on the podcast finally. Been trying to wrangle you for a while. I'm glad we finally got some quarantine time to get an hour with you, but I know that you got Max is calling you, and I know I'm sure your wife is wanting some help around the house. So we'll let you go.
I do appreciate that, Travis. I appreciate your patience as well with that. Again, I'm always open. You know, get together, walk by. Again, let's learn with each other. Between the lines. I think that is important for this community, and we keep growing. And then again, you know, let's get like in a good stage and stay there. When we were there, we want to go somewhere else. Just let's stay consistent a little bit more.
I like it. All right, Marcio, we'll have a great rest of the day. Appreciate you coming on. I'm sure I'll be walking by your house sometime soon.
Please come by, and then you too try. So get around, and then if you guys go to the Valley Park to Pepper, I will make fun of you guys' skills.
I'm sure we will.
Love it. Thanks, Marcio.
See you, Coach.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Later, fellas.